And not only did he learn how to read and write effectively, but many years later, his mom reached out to me and said not only had he made it through high school and college, but he was now working as a successful engineer. So again, it's just an
Wow.
that don't give up on your child. They have the potential as long as you find the right path and help them through it. They have the potential to excel in life.
Hello, and welcome to ADHD and with Jorie Houlihan. I am Jorie Houlihan. I am your host. I am also an ADHD coach and speaker and your guide for the dopamine deprived. Today's guest is truly incredible. Dr. Emily Levy is an education expert and the founder and director of EBL Coaching, a specialized tutoring program that offers individualized one-on-one home, virtual, and on-site instruction using research-based multisensory techniques. I love that. She graduated from Brown University and received her master's degree in special education and also completed her doctorate degree from Nova University in Florida. She performed a 5-year research study developing an alternative strategy for teaching reading comprehension and won a 5th place Westinghouse Science and Talent Award for this research. Dr. Levy is also the author of Strategies for Study Success, a 22-part student workbook series that teaches students strategies for test taking, note taking, reading comprehension, writing, summarizing, and executive functioning, along with the Flags and Stars Orton Gillingham student workbook series, which helps students develop their fundamental decoding and spelling skills. Boy, did I need this stuff when I was younger. Anyway, additionally, she is the author of Flags and Stars Multisensory Math, a multisensory math program that helps students develop a stronger understanding of core math concepts, including addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and fractions. These workbooks are currently used at schools nationwide. Welcome to the show, Dr. Levy.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for that wonderful introduction.
You have accomplished so much. And like I said, some of this stuff, I was like, man, this is stuff I really needed when I was younger. So, so let's get into it. Your journey as an innovator in education is really inspiring to me. Can you share the story behind how you founded EBL Coaching and what personal or professional moments sparked your passion for helping neurodivergent learners?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, I actually grew up in the field of special education. I grew up in Florida, and my mother had started a school for students with learning disabilities. So I really spent so much of my childhood working at her school, working with students, observing teachers, being trained in different methods. And then sort of decided I wanted to carve my own path. I went to Brown University and then actually did finance of all things, totally different than education. But I quickly realized that education, specifically special education, was my calling. It was so gratifying, so rewarding to see the lives of these students change from the right support. So that's when my life pivoted. I decided to pursue my master's degree in special education, then my doctorate degree in education, and eventually formed EBL coaching. I began tutoring students myself with neurodivergent learning needs, and then eventually brought on other experts, other specialists on board, and formed EBL Coaching, where we now have an incredible team of learning specialists who specialize in providing this one-on-one instruction.
That is amazing. It's so interesting to me to see people's pivots. I see people now where they're really just flourishing where they are, and you hear where they started, and it's like just completely different. And I love that. I love it when people when they find their passion. So before we get too in the weeds with all of this, can you explain to our audience what a 504 is, what an IEP is?
Sure, be happy to. Well, a 504 typically defines accommodations that a student will receive in order to access the general curriculum. An IEP is usually more for students who have more severe and profound challenges where they can't quite access the general curriculum and really need their own sort of a learning plan. So it's usually for more students who have more severe learning disabilities, more severe challenges that really need that extra layer of support.
Okay, thank you. Because I don't know how many of our audience members know all this, and I'm happy that they have these accommodations, and while our audience is obviously mostly women who have ADHD, as I'm sure you know, ADHD is very heritable. So more than likely they have kids with ADHD, and this is one of the reasons I'm very excited to talk to you because we this is something that I get asked a lot about is how do I work with my kids? I struggle with these things, right? You have developed several research based multisensory workbooks.
Yes.
So, for someone who is new to these approaches, can you break down what multisensory really means and also why it is so effective for ADHD and dyslexic learners?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Multisensory essentially means that rather than, say, working out of a workbook or just listening to a teacher, we engage the senses simultaneously: the visual, the auditory, the tactile, kinesthetic modalities. That includes tools like colored sand, magnetic tiles, shaving cream, mini whiteboards. All of these tools that are part of a structured curriculum that really help engage the students. So, when it comes to students who have ADHD, as you know, it's very easy to tune out, to zone out. But when we're engaging those senses and they're actively involved in learning, it's incredibly effective in helping this information to stick in their long term memory.
Yeah. So, one of the reasons that I was excited to talk to you is because I discovered for myself after my diagnosis, I've always struggled with reading, not I can read, but my brain wanders all the time. And so you struggle with comprehension because you feel like you're rereading the same page 50 times, right?
Yeah.
And so what I started doing was I would start listening to the audiobook while I was reading the book.
Yeah.
And there was something about that that made it very different. And then my husband said, "Well, maybe you should see about putting some other sensory stuff in, like maybe have like a scented candle or whatever." So I feel like that's why I was like, "Oh, this is so interesting because I really saw a difference for myself and this is what you do." So I was like, "Oh, this is exciting."
Yes,
So
there's so many different types of multisensory tools, and sometimes it's about identifying the ones that work best for you or for your child.
Right, exactly. And we talk about that a lot here. Like you have to find the things that work for you. Don't worry what works for everybody else. Find what works for you. You conducted a 5-year research study on reading comprehension strategies. What were your most surprising findings about how neurodivergent students learn best?
Well, what I found from that research is that using visualization, helping students to form images of what they're reading or what they're listening to, really helps strengthen their comprehension skills. And that is something that I still use today when we work with students. We do a lot of visualization work, especially when students struggle with reading comprehension.
So, how does it work? Because I actually really struggle with visualization. It's very interesting. If somebody isn't telling me to visualize, I think in images and I think in movies and music. But the minute somebody says, visualize this, my brain goes blank. And I know there's something for people who can't visualize. So, how does it work if you have a person who struggles with visualization then?
So the way it might work is if we were in a session with a student, we might read them a story one sentence at a time. For example, he was sitting around a campfire with his friends. We would then ask prompting questions. Image that you see in your head. How old do you think Johnny is? Is it nighttime? Is it daytime? How many friends are there? What do the friends look like? How old are they? So we're kind of asking them these prompting questions to help them form this image in their head of what they're hearing or what they're reading. And we would do that one sentence at a time, again, starting with a very short story, like 4 or 5 lines. And then we would ask them to retell that story first with all of those extra vivid details, and then to try to just focus on what was actually in the story and retell it in their own words. And it's really incredible how they start to just visualize more on their own when we practice this kind of direct strategy.
That is very cool. That is very cool. I'll have to practice that.
Yeah.
What are some there's a lot of misinformation out there about ADHD among a lot of things. But what have you found to be some common myths or misconceptions that you encounter about ADHD in girls and women, especially related to academic performance or self-esteem?
Well, I think sadly there are still a lot of girls that sort of fall through the cracks, so to speak, when they have ADHD because they're not always as hyper. They're not jumping on chairs and jumping, running around the room. So they might kind of quietly struggle academically without anyone picking up on it until much later. So that's something I always, when I speak to parents, I say, if you're noticing that your child is scattered, is disorganized, loses things, forgets to turn in homework, don't just wait and see what happens. Really start to take action and start to teach them strategies for building these skills because these executive functioning skills only become that much more challenging moving forward. And what happens is we see all of these kids that are so bright and so capable of excelling in school. They hit upper elementary or middle school and their grades start to tank because their poor executive functioning skills, their poor organizational skills start to negatively affect their academic performance.
Yes, my daughter if she was in second grade, and I had asked her teacher because my son had just been diagnosed, and I asked her teacher, we were in for conferences, and somebody had mentioned that they thought she also had it, and she's very different. My son is exactly what people think of when they think of ADHD, right? And she's not. And I didn't really know anything about executive functioning at that time. So I asked her teacher, I said, "Do you have any concerns about her focus, or, my son was just diagnosed?" And she's like, "No, no, not at all."
Mm,
But then later in the meeting proceeded to tell us, like, how messy her desk was, how messy her locker was, and I was like, "Yeah, you should see her room." Like, we didn't get it, at the time. And
yeah,
then it wasn't until after I was diagnosed that I went, "Oh, I see what's going on there."
yeah,
And you're right, it's very different for girls, and I feel that teachers are still looking for boy symptoms in girls.
yes,
And I wish there was a way we could educate a little better in terms of that. I mean, I know they already have a lot on their plate, but that
yeah,
is something that when I think about how much potential has been left on the table because of girls being missed, it really just breaks my heart. It
yeah,
just does.
yeah.
So, um, all right. So, executive function challenges come up obviously constantly in our community. So, what are a few actionable strategies from your strategies for study success series that women can use today, whether it's for themselves or for their children?
Sure. So, two strategies, of course, there are many, but two that come to mind are one is a really nice time management strategy. It's called the ET versus AT strategy. And so, let's say we have a task to complete. It could be a child has a homework sheet to complete, it could be a parent has a few bills to pay, whatever it is. And what we do is we determine the estimated time. How much time do I think it's going to take me to complete this task? And write down the ET or the estimated time. And then as we're doing the task, keep tabs on how long it actually takes to complete, and then compare the estimated time versus the actual time. And typically, with individuals who have executive functioning challenges, ADHD, there's usually a really big discrepancy in the beginning between those two times. But as we practice this strategy, we start to become more realistic with time, with how long things take to complete. And in turn, time management skills tend to improve. And then along those lines, I find that having a designated study space, and this could be for adults or kids, is so key. So for kids, there's so many kids that sometimes they'll do their homework in the kitchen, sometimes in the dining room, sometimes at a desk. They don't always have the supplies they need. So I always say, pick a designated workspace, ideally a desk in their room. But if that doesn't work, another designated space is okay too,
Mhm.
and have the supplies stocked that they'll need for completing their assignments. Have enough paper, have scissors, sharpened pencils, pens, whatever they may need so that they don't stop mid study session and start wandering around the house looking for supplies. And again, the same thing applies for adults. We all have bills to pay, we all have work that we need to do. Try to do it all in one contained space with all of the supplies that we need for completing that task.
Yeah, that's very smart because otherwise we are like, "Oh, I don't have this thing," and then we go wandering off looking for it, and then you may never make it back.
Exactly.
And I do as far as the time part of it, I do that exact same thing with my private clients. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard, "No, I knew I was off. I didn't know I was that off." I was like, "That's exactly why we do this." So,
Good.
all right. Parents, as we just mentioned earlier, very often also have ADHD, at least one of them, if their kid has it, right? So, and even parents who don't have ADHD often feel overwhelmed trying to navigate support for kids who have ADHD or other kind of special needs with schools. And
Mm.
so if you have ADHD, that overwhelm is compounded. It feels complicated and it's just overwhelming. So what is one thing you wish every parent knew about this, and how can they best advocate for their child in a school setting?
Well, I think something I often tell kids and parents with ADHD is that there's so many incredibly successful people in life, CEOs, business owners, celebrities who have ADHD and who have found a path to success. So they should never give up just because something seems like a struggle. In fact, I would say most individuals with ADHD happen to be very bright and very capable of excelling in life. It's sort of getting through school that's the challenge. So I think
Yeah.
really seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I know it's easy for parents to get frustrated, to feel overwhelmed, to want to give up, but they have to know and believe in their child that they absolutely have the potential to find success in life.
Yes, I agree. It is a lot sometimes to try to navigate that, and a lot of it depends on the schools too, because if you're in a good school district, I feel you don't have to work as hard. But if you are in a school where you have to fight for tooth and nail for everything. I mean, when we were dealing with some aspects of it, we had to get an advocate in to come and help us because it was really challenging. So I agree, though, it is absolutely worth it to help your kid get through school. I have one kid who hates school and the other kid who she doesn't hate it, but she tolerates it, but she does well, and it's two very different ways of handling it. So if you are one of those parents, I'm telling you, just stick with it. Get an advocate, ask for some help if you need help in that department. Don't be afraid to do that. Your Orton Gillingham and multisensory math programs are used nationwide. Math was my nemesis in school. So
Yeah, yeah.
and it turns out I'm actually good at math, but at the time I didn't know that. So I'm very curious. So can you share a story where these tools made a breakthrough difference for a learner, especially one who struggled with the traditional methods of learning?
Sure. I'm fortunate to say that there are a lot of stories like that, but there's one that comes to mind. Many years ago, I personally used to tutor students myself. Now I kind of oversee and don't tutor as much, but there was a little boy who was in first grade at the time when I worked with him. He had severe ADHD and severe dyslexia and
Mm.
struggled immensely in school. And I used the Orton Gillingham method with him. I used a multisensory approach. And not only did he learn how to read and write effectively, but many years later, his mom reached out to me and said not only had he made it through high school and college, but he was now working as a successful engineer. So again, it's just an
Wow.
don't give up on your child. They have the potential as long as you find the right path and help them through it. They have the potential to excel in life.
See, I wish that things like what you offer were in more schools. I wish we had, because and this is true for anybody in my opinion, right? We all learn differently. We all process information differently, right? And I wish we had schools where the teacher would be like, "Okay, so for my visual learners, you're going to do this. For my audio, my audible learners, you're going to do this, etc." Just so that they could learn the way they learn. They're being taught the way they know how to teach, but that's not necessarily how the student knows to learn. And
True.
so many students, me included, I spent most of my life thinking I wasn't very bright, right? And it affected my self-confidence and all of that. And I think we definitely need I mean, right now, I'm sure this is a pipe dream, but, the way we tend to have a one size fits all education system, would you agree?
Absolutely, without a doubt. I completely agree with you. I think if we can cater the instruction to each student's needs, it would do wonders.
Yeah, it would be. All right. So if you could give one message to women with ADHD who are just starting to embrace their diagnosis, what would it be?
I would say we all have strengths and weaknesses. Do not give up on yourself or your child. See the path through. Find what you're strong at, what you excel at, and try to find success with that. Never give up on yourself because everybody has the potential to thrive in life.
I agree. Completely agree. I feel that when you understand how your brain works, it just makes such a big difference. And these things that you thought you were not capable of, when you go, oh, well, now that I better understand why I couldn't do it this way, maybe I could try it this way and it would make more sense, right? Because now you're better understanding how your brain works. So, yeah, I just don't ever give up on yourselves, ladies. That's all I can say. All
Yes.
right. So, while the answer to this could be its own podcast episode, in your opinion, how can we improve the education system?
Well, I believe that if we integrated more effective professional development, I think that could really improve our educational system. We know research tells us that particularly neurodiverse students thrive on a multisensory approach, but I would argue every student would benefit from that. But if we did more professional development on specific concrete research based strategies that are effective for students, and then have oversight and make sure that teachers are using it and applying it correctly, I think that we would see a tremendously positive difference in our education system.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. There are so many really great teachers out there, and I know that they very often feel like they're beating their head against a wall because there's also so much red tape and bureaucracy and all that stuff. So I'm thrilled that your stuff is in some schools because I wish it was in more. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
But I am I'm really happy that we're talking about this because maybe there's going to be some educators out there who are going to be like, hey, we need to talk to this lady
Yeah.
because the more we can get a more diverse way of learning for our students, again, because it isn't just people with ADHD or people who have autism or any of this stuff. Everybody learns differently. And I just, as I said before, I just wish we had a, a more well rounded way of teaching students.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so we are going to do the rapid fire round. So I'm going to ask you a few questions and just answer them, whatever comes off the top of your head. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. What is your favorite brain friendly snack?
I'm going to go with pistachios.
Ooh, yeah, I love pistachios. That reminds me of my dad. My dad
Mm.
loved pistachios, and every year at Christmas, we would get him the red ones that dyed your fingers, you know?
Yep.
And I'm sure he was sick to death of them by the end, but that's just where that was what we loved to give him. The book that you recommend the most to parents?
I happen to love Overcoming Dyslexia by Sally Shaywitz for parents of children with dyslexia. I also like A Mind at a Time by Mel Levine, which is more specific to ADHD.
Awesome. Okay. What is one daily ritual that you never skip?
I am a big exerciser. It gives me sanity and it's something I try to do every day.
What's your favorite form of exercise?
I really mix it up because I find I get injured if I do the same thing too much. So
Yeah.
sometimes I run, sometimes I do Pilates, sometimes I do yoga. I kind of mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm at this place where I am just bored to death with what I'm doing. So I'm asking her, "What do you do? What do you do?" Because I just need to find something new. But I'm
Yes.
at that age where like my bones are like, "You need to do strength training." But
Mm.
I'm just so bored with what I've been doing. All right. What would your superpower be if you could pick anyone that you anyone you wanted?
I would fly. I would never look at an airport again and I would fly.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, airports are terrible. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh yeah, flying. Have you ever had the dreams where you're flying?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I
Yeah,
do.
it's like really freaky but really fun.
Yeah. It's a
My I get like that nervous feeling in my stomach and the whole thing. Where can people find you?
best place is our website, which is eblcoaching.com. And then we have social media channels on pretty much all of them: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, all of them under EBL Coaching.
Thank you so much for being here. I really have I'm very happy that you were able to do this with us, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
For those of you who are watching, if this has resonated with you, definitely check out her website and see what they have available. We all have those students, or almost all of us have those students that could use, just sometimes just an extra boost. And this could be something that could really help them. So absolutely check them out. And also, if you are resonating with this show, I would love it if you would follow the show, leave a comment, or share it with a friend, or all of the above. That would be great. So, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you got a lot out of today. And as we both have been saying throughout this entire show, don't give up on yourself. There are so many different ways of learning information, processing things. You just have to find the right one for you. So don't give up. Don't give up on your students. It's absolutely worth it. All right. So until next time, remember, this is ADHD and with Jorie Houlihan, and stay curious.